Today we're going to be reviewing Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando. Now, I did not come into this coaster with high expectations. I just thought it was going to be a kind of rough, very mediocre, floorless coaster. But this coaster proved me wrong, and I quite enjoyed it. But what about you? Will you enjoy this ride? Is it even worth waiting in line for? Well, let's find out. Let's go through some brief stats of Kraken to give you an idea of what you can expect from this coaster. Kraken stands 149 feet tall, features 4,177 feet of track, 7 inversions, and reaches a top speed of 65 miles per hour. Those inversions include 2 vertical loops, a dive loop, a 0G roll, a cobra roll, and a final corkscrew. Now, do you just want to say that Kraken looks really nice, and I really love the color scheme. And it recently just got refurbished and repainted, so it looks even better. And the theming is pretty minimal, but the entrance plaza and sign look really nice. Now, quick disclaimer, it is no longer called Kraken Unleashed, it's just been renamed to Kraken, but the entrance plaza looks pretty much identical. Now, you may be wondering, is this coaster rough? And will it give you headbanging? Now, yes, it will give you headbanging, but it is super easy to prevent. So here's how you prevent headbanging on especially these B&M coasters featuring over these shoulder restraints. All you have to do is lean your head forward in the restraint so that it is not able to hit against the sides of the restraint. This will make the ride so much more comfortable and enjoyable, and I highly recommend that you do this when you take a ride on Kraken or honestly any coaster that features an over the shoulder restraint. It's super nice to not have to worry about roughness when riding a coaster with over-the-shoulder restraints. Now, Kraken is a little rough, but it does not take away from the experience whatsoever. And I found it to be very tolerable when using the trick I just told you about. Kraken's pacing, the trains, they're all pretty darn good. But now let's jump into the actual ride experience and see what it's really like to take a ride on Kraken. You roll out of the station and start to descend up your lift hill. Now, this is a lift hill. I don't really need to explain much. Quick disclaimer though, please do not get your phone out on this ride at any point during it. Even on the lift hill, you can and will get ejected from the park, so just don't do it. You then plunge down your 144 foot tall drop. Now, it's not great. The over-the-shoulder restraints don't really allow you to get a ton of airtime, and honestly, it feels like it's just to get you up to speed, not to actually be a standout element on this coaster. But the next element is pretty darn good. This vertical loop provides really good sustained positive Gs. It's super forceful throughout the entire inversion, and it is a great way to start this coaster off with a bang. So these two first elements have been pretty decent. Next up, we have a dive loop, which it's pretty good. It provides good whip at the top, and it really changes the pace up from the first element. Next up, you head into a 0G roll. Again, it's super whippy, and it's pretty similar to the dive loop. Now, the 0G roll is definitely better than those found on like dive coasters, because it's so much more fast-paced and whippy. Now, I would say it's a little bit more whippy in the back, but it's still a really good element in the front. Next, you head into your cobra roll. Now, this cobra roll is nothing special. It's like pretty much all other cobra rolls, and I'm not a huge fan of these elements. They're just pretty okay to me. Sure, it has a decent amount of whip. It's pretty forceful. I mean, it's a little shaky. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's just not a standout element, and it's just kind of there. Definitely not super memorable or anything, but it's not a bad element whatsoever. Next, you kind of slowly glide into your mid-course brake run. Now, it barely does anything, just giving you a little tap to make sure you're going at the right speed. Then you dive down into this sort of like tunnel thing and head into a super compact, intense vertical loop. Now, this is a pretty darn good element. It's really intense. You're diving into the tunnel with the water surrounding you. Now, yes, it is a little shaky, but it is not bad whatsoever. Next, you kind of glide up into like a scenic turnaround, not super intense, but the wind in your face is nice. Make sure to snap a picture outside of front entrance. Do not have your phone out on the ride. Next, you head into a corkscrew. Similar to the vertical loop, it's super compact. It provides good whip and intensity, and it's a really good way to end the ride out on a bang. You then glide into the final brake run, and you kind of come to an abrupt stop here, so just be ready and brace yourself, or else you might hit your head on the back of the seat, which is never comfortable. Fast forward a little bit and you're back in the station and have completed your ride on Kraken. Now another super nice pro to this coaster is the line is never long and the capacity is good. Kraken has the ability to run 3 trains with 8 cars each, seeing a total of 32 passengers per train. Now when I visited SeaWorld in December, they were only running 2 trains, but the line was super short and they were being pretty efficient. This is a super good coaster to just hop on in the middle of the day to get a quick ride in with little to no wait. It's intense, super whippy, and it has a pretty good mix of elements. The trains are solid and it's not too rough whatsoever. Now, please note that a height requirement for Kraken is 54 inches, so just keep that in mind if you have younger kids. All in all, I'm a pretty big fan of Kraken, and it was a pleasant surprise when I visited SeaWorld Orlando, and you have to check it out when you take a visit to SeaWorld Orlando. If I were to give this a grade, I give this coaster a solid B. Yes, it is a little rough, but it's got such a good mix of elements, it's super intense and everything, that I have to give it at least a B. Maybe even a stretch B+. But basically, the new grading scale I'm using, if it's above a C, it's probably a decent coaster you should take the time to ride. And be sure to check out my Pipeline the Surf Coaster review, because I go super in depth into everything you can expect when you take a ride on that amazing surf coaster. Trust me, you don't want to miss out. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, drop a like down below, subscribe while you're at it, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. And stay tuned for more reviews coming your way very, very soon.